Now I would like to introduce Tracy Hill, today's presenter. Tracy is the Executive Director of Family and Community Engagement for the Cleveland Metropolitan School District and is a member of the Institute of Educational Leadership's District Leaders Network on Family and Community Engagement. In 2014, she was recognized as one of the 16 leaders to learn from by Education Week magazine and participated in the White House Symposium on Transformative Family Engagement. Please join me in welcoming Tracy Hill. Tracy?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Beth. So I'd like to, first of all, thank everyone for inviting me to be a part of this summit. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for us all to think about how we can further strengthen family school partnerships, especially in the midst of a pandemic. And I know that we're all faced with many challenges as we seek to find new ways to partner with our families, especially those of you who are endeavoring to use remote learning or have hybrid situations. So we're just going to talk a little bit about what we've done in Cleveland in the past and still currently do, and then provide an example of how we used a integrated approach with all of our systems in CMSD to meet the needs of our families during the pandemic. So just one of the things that I want to reiterate is that we have over 40 years of research that show when schools are able to partner with families and engage them and their students' learning and build relationships, that we do see increases in student achievement, higher graduation rates and reduced absenteeism, better attitudes by students towards learning, better social school skills, much better teacher-student relationships, and improved cultural competence and trust in schools. And, you know, we've really had a very acute focus on family engagement and partnerships for the last 10 years. I've been in the district for 10 years. And in that 10 years, we've actually seen, because of how we have a laser-like focus on building and strengthening family school partnerships, we've actually raised our graduation rate by almost 30% in the last 6 years, reduced chronic absenteeism, and also increased student achievement. We are one of the fastest improving districts in the nation for larger urban school districts. I'm sure many of you have seen Dr. Karen Mapp out of the Graduate School of Education at Harvard. She actually created this dual capacity building framework when she was invited by Arne Duncan, who was the Secretary of Education over President Obama. They realized that, you know, how important family engagement and partnerships are to improving outcomes for students, especially students of color and disenfranchised kids and kids living in rural areas and in urban areas. And she created this framework. I'm not going to go too much into this framework, and you can find it on the web by just looking up the dual capacity building framework, and look for version 2. There is a website that has an explanation of what this partnership framework looks like, and then several examples, including the example of Cleveland in terms of our academic achievement plan process, and also Michelle Brooks, who I know was our keynote speaker today, the work that she did in Boston to strengthen family school partnerships. But one of the things that is revealed is that there is this opportunity that we have. And, you know, I've been working in education for over 30 years in various capacities, from being a classroom teacher to being a special education director. But one of the things is that what I've seen is that every parent wants the best for their child. I've not met a parent, regardless of their circumstance, that wakes up and says, I'm gonna screw my kid up every day. We know that parents have different levels of capacity. So when we think about the opportunity to build capacity, we have to think about how we can do that through our educational systems and partnering with community organizations. and that parents are their children's first teacher and are experts on their children. So it's very important that as we work with parents, we ask them important questions about how their children learn best, what motivates them, and also inquire and not dig too deep into what might be some factors that might interfere with a child being successful at school. One of the things that Dr. Mapp lays out, again, are the elements of effective engagement. Because I think too many times, when we think about family engagement, and this is why the language was changed in ESSA, we went from parent involvement to family engagement. And when you think about a relationship, and you think about perhaps when you were dating, if you were dating someone, you were involved with them, which meant that at any point, if you didn't like what was happening, you could actually break up that relationship. Whereas when we think about engagement, we think about two people or families and schools that have made a commitment to each other, that have a level of efficacy in terms of working with each other. And that commitment is often a lifetime commitment. When we think about school, it's as that parent and family matriculates through the school system. So we have to make sure that as in serious relationships, or when you engage with someone, that there is that relational aspect, that you're grounding these relationships in trust, and taking the time to reach out to parents and build that trust, that it's collaborative, that it's not one-sided, which when you think about being involved with someone, it was either my way or that way. It's two-way, and you're engaging families to be partners, that it's linked to learning. And this is where we've seen great success in Cleveland, in terms of making sure that as we are engaging with families, if we're thinking about doing a muffins for mom or a donuts for dad, that we're actually taking that time, and we have I don't want to say a captive audience, to share information, books, and practices about how they can better support their children. Again, that it's interactive. A lot of times when I've seen family engagement events in the past, it was really like you're a sit and get for families, instead of thinking about using the principles of adult learning and having two-way chats and small group discussions, and providing families with information and demonstrating how they can support their children at home. So it's really thinking about how adults learn instead of how maybe children learn. It's different, and that it's relevant, that it's developed, and we think about the culture and context of families. So we oftentimes do workshops for grandparents, because they have custody of children. So thinking about how we might approach that differently, especially now in the technological age when we are doing full-time remote learning. We've actually reached out to grandparents and are helping them to learn how to navigate the digital world. One of the things that we also do in Cleveland is really think about dual capacity. So again, that dual capacity framework. You can't build one side of the house without building the other side of the house. It might collapse or become unbalanced. So we are very thoughtful about providing multiple opportunities for our educators throughout the year, with our principals and new principal trainings that we do once a year, but we also provide support through my office for them. We do educator PD and do quarterly district offerings through our PD office. We do have a website that links our educators to online resources like a Harvard X, and then through our PD office. And then we have what we call the Blue Institute, which is a week-long teacher training during the summer. And we have multiple workshops on engaging families, from immigrant families to special ed families to our homeless families. And then for families, we do Parent University at our schools and district events. This year, we are actually building a library of Parent University classes, which are virtual, and done by our educators as well as some of our community partners. We have done in the past, we were not able to do these in the spring, but we have been doing Parent University college tours with our families, where the family would take families on college tours. We had to suspend those for the spring and also for the fall. And then we have our Parent Leadership Institute, which is a quarterly training for parents in terms of building their leadership capacity. And then all of our schools receive Title I-A funds. We are one of the poorest cities in the nation and have the highest rate of childhood poverty. So we make sure that our Title I events, because all our schools receive family engagement dollars, are linked to learning and the academic achievement plan priorities. Again, family engagement is a part of our, as we think about integration, it's part of our principal evaluation. It's part of our teacher evaluation. As I indicated before, all of our academic achievement plans, which are the school improvement plans required by the state, have a component for family engagement for every academic priority or social emotional priority in the AAP. So if you have a priority for math or third grade reading, the school has to articulate a strategy to engage families. And we used a tiered approach to family engagement, just as we do with PBIS, where the first tier is all of our families. So what do we do for all of our families? Tier 2 is what do we do for a subset of families? So it might be targeting K-3 literacy, so making sure that we're very intentional about activities and outreach to those families. And then tier 3 being intensive. So that might be where we have family support specialists in 43 of our schools, might do home visits and link those families to other resources available in the communities. And parents have to be a part of our AAP team that is written into our district family engagement policy. And they have to also help monitor those plans. So we do have quarterly meetings where we actually go through each of the priorities identified and track progress, not only in terms of student outcomes, but in terms of how families are being engaged around that priority. All of our schools through,
Tracy,
again, yes.
there's just a quick question. If you have a couple minutes, someone would like to know a little bit more about linking family engagement activities with Title I.
Okay, so if you allow me, the next two
Great.
slides will talk about that. So in our district, we recommend that each one of our schools have a family engagement committee. And again, that committee is comprised of, in some instances, the principal or administrator of record. There are teachers from each grade or grade band. They must have a family, a parent, maybe several parents on it from their school parent organization or their parent advisory council. And actually these committees meet and actually develop a plan. Again, with Title I, the activities have to be linked to the academic priorities in their academic achievement plan. So these committees, we provide training to schools on how to set up and run these committees. And again, they are responsible for developing the activities in the schools that are linked to learning, but also linked to some other priorities as well. This is actually, and this is to answer that question, every school is required when they're utilizing their funds from Title I Family Engagement to complete this Title I action plan. And if some of you are involved in the National Network of Partnership Schools, we actually went to that training and modeled this form after the form that they use in that model. So they have to create this action plan, and I'm sorry it's so small. It is like a full page document where they actually identify the school, the name of the activity. So if it's a third grade reading night or literacy fair, they put the activity name. They have to indicate the members of the committee who developed the plan. And here you have to see, they have to align it with the priority in their AAP. They have to identify which priority it aligns to. So in the AAP, the priorities are around the instructional core, college and career readiness, attendance, social emotional learning, and building capacity. Again, they have to identify if it's for a subgroup of parents or is it a universal strategy for families. So they have to check off which one of the levels or tiers that activity falls under. So if it's for all families, like a pre-K-8 literacy night, then they check off it's a universal. If it's a targeted for perhaps a 9th grade parents who are new to the school and need to understand the graduation requirements, then it's a targeted. And then for an intensive, it might be for a subset of students who are chronically absent. So it could be that they're going to be doing home visits and want to take materials. They have to give a description of the activities and then what the families will learn. So just like teachers develop lesson plans, there has to be a goal or an objective that the school wants to see in terms of an outcome for that family. I always say to our educators, when parents come to our schools, and engage in these activities. What will they know differently that they didn't know when they came? How are we building capacity? And how are we strengthening their ability to support any one of those different identified priority areas when they go home, so that when they come to us and they participate in these activities, what will they do differently? They have to identify how they're going to communicate about the activity, if they're purchasing like home learning kits or books, educational games. Sometimes they'll purchase jump drives and a loaded variety of different materials on there. They have to, indicate that. So this is how our schools, and they are required, fill out these plans with their family engagement committees to create these activities, again, that are linked to learning and have an outcome for families in terms of when they leave, what will they do differently to support student outcomes. Again, these are just some examples of activities that might occur: monthly third grade reading guarantee meetings. And again, a lot of these things are happening virtually now. We were only into our second full week of school for our traditional schools, but we've already had principals do workshops with families on how to navigate the learning management program that we're using for remote learning. They might have class meetings to share data, cohort meetings for high school parents, college application and FAFSA informational nights, grade band math and literacy nights, and then anti-bullying workshops and other workshops to help parents support social emotional learning. We also have developed a dashboard, and again, this was identified as a best practice by the Harvard Graduate School of Education and Dr. Karen Mapp on her dual capacity framework webpage. What we do is we collect all of the data, and just like instruction should be data-driven, engagement needs to be data-driven. So we have this family engagement dashboard where members of my team who are assigned to the schools, they're called FACE coordinators, work with those schools and their family engagement teams to develop those activities. And then they get all the action plans and the agendas, the evaluations, the sign-in sheets, and enter them into our database. And this database is used to kind of identify where we are as a district. We have 6 different networks in our district, so we're able to share this with the network superintendent so that they can also monitor family engagement. This is from the previous year, but we have a color-coded so you can see the SPO meetings that happen, or the parent advisory committee meetings. We actually track parent-teacher conference attendance in our eSchool Plus student information system. When teachers have conferences, they actually have a comment to identify that a parent had a conference or did not have a conference, and then submit evidence to my office for the auditors. So you can see the different types of activities. What we also are monitoring is the different tiers of activities. So one of our goals this year is, again, to move from tier 1 and those universal outreach and activities to more tier 2 and tier 3 activities, so that we're really being thoughtful about how we're engaging those families that need a little bit more support. Again, this dashboard is used, it's regularly monitored. We share reports with principals, with the network leaders, with our CEO, Eric Gordon, again, to monitor this. And this is also shared with the other departments and divisions that I work with. So I sit on almost every committee, from academics to humanware, which is our social emotional learning, to the attendance committee. I work in terms of helping them to shape how their outreach and strategies to engage families occur. So with that, I know I don't have a lot of time, and I could talk for probably hours about how we've integrated family engagement into every aspect of our district. But I just wanted to share with you our strategy as we moved into this new year, which is just unprecedented in terms of how schools are working under entirely different circumstances that we've never experienced before. So for all you educators out there doing this hard work of operating educational systems during a global pandemic, thank you for all of your effort. And I also hope that you are well and staying healthy, as well as your families. So as we went through our reopening, we actually met over the summer, and it was, like I said, members of every division, from the engagement division to academics to IT to our operations and communications and the CEO's office, where we sat down and collaborated and came up with our reopening plan, which included 3 different types of settings for students. The first is the virtual remote learning, which we are doing for the first quarter of the school year. Then there's a hybrid model, and I know many of you are probably using that model. And then once we've moved into a place where it's indicated that COVID-19 is not posing a health risk, there's the potential of perhaps moving back to all brick and mortar. We closely monitor the reports that come from the Cleveland Department of Health, as well as the Ohio guidance. But in terms of reopening, again, we identified 6 guiding principles: maintaining the health and safety and well-being of our students and educators, exemplifying excellence and equity in learning and teaching. And again, one of the things that we are really focused on in our district is making sure that learning is instilled with joy, and that our students are having a good experience, supporting our students and educators as we adapt to these new models and methods of teaching and learning, ensuring operational efficiency across the organization. So we've developed many ways to track technology distribution. We have actually, we're still in the midst of a one-to-one distribution to all of our families. We've partnered with organizations to provide free broadband internet access. And for those who don't live in the areas where that's available, we've purchased over 20,000 hotspots to guarantee that our families have access to the internet. We have partnered with community organizations to leverage those assets, and I'm going to talk about that in terms of what we did, adapting our operations as you have gone to address the COVID-19 risk, and then deepening our work around the need for personalized learning and inquiry-based mastery learning strategies. And you can read our plan at the website below, www.clevelandmetroschools.org, reopening CMSD. So right now, as I said, we're in standard remote learning. Our students are all have been given devices. We're still distributing this week and switching out older devices for the new ones that we received. As you can imagine, purchasing over 20,000 laptops during a global pandemic was a challenge, but we were able to purchase all of the equipment that we needed for our students. So our school buildings are open from 7:30 to 4:30. We do have personnel in our schools so that if parents need to come and visit or enroll or pick up technology or supplies, there are people there, but they are asked to make an appointment. And our educator access to the school buildings is there. And our student instructional day, which includes synchronous and asynchronous learning, is from 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. And then Wednesday is a totally asynchronous day where students are doing work independently. To meet some of the needs of our families, what we did, I worked with members of our IT team, our social emotional learning team, our academic team, our food service team, to develop a survey that we administered over about a month-long period. We had educators actually calling families and administering the survey using, we have this strategy called Communicate with Heart, which employs all of our staff have been trained in terms of empathetic learning skills and just really listening, active listening, and listening for how we can support families. So I did a training for every educator in the district on how to administer this survey. So we did make calls, and then we also put it on our website for families who missed our call. So one of the things we did was assess the social emotional needs, talked about homeschool communication, the best way to reach our families, the best times. Again, assessing technology needs, which actually informed our device distribution and providing internet services to our families. We have a meal plan for our families where they can pick up daily from any one of our 66 pre-K-8 sites, or from 7 or weekly from our high school sites. We also, because Cleveland right now is the lowest responding city in the nation for a population over 300,000, we actually supported our families in completing their census, and also gave them information on how to register to vote. So we, again, had about a 31% participation rate. And one of the questions we also asked was, does your child have supervision during the school day? And our families, many of them said yes, and about 16% said no. If they answered no, then we told them that we were working with community partners. We've actually been able to establish 48 locations in the city of Cleveland, in various neighborhoods. And we worked with our partners to identify sites where they would be willing to host students during the day if their families needed supervision. We do have in Cleveland, the medical industry is one of the primary employers. So we know we have a lot of our families who are frontline workers. And then of those who said that they did not have supervision, we asked if they wanted us to follow up with them to provide them with the resource and make the connection to one of these 48 sites that were offering academic learning pods. 59% of the families said yes, they wanted to have us help them, and then 41% said no. And we're assuming that those families had other family members or a support system of people that they could trust to supervise their families. And we estimate that we will need to serve about 2,600 families with these academic learning pods, and we are continuing our work to identify other organizations like our faith-based community, the YMCA, the YWCA, the libraries here to offer these academic learning pods. And again, as I said, we partnered with many community organizations, identified those partners, and ensured that the programming was neighborhood-based. And we also created a resource bank for schools and families so that they could easily access that programming. And again, this was an integrated approach. I worked with members of many different departments, from our director of institutional advancement, and he works with all of these funding partners. So we worked with to get PPE donated from the Cleveland Clinic, donated a substantial amount of PPE that we could use to distribute to our partners. So again, we're also working with our academic and IT team so that they can go out and train these partners in terms of our remote learning platform. So it is an all hands on deck approach when we think about family engagement and supporting our families. But again, the challenges continue to be great. You know, we do, as much as we do provide opportunities for families to learn about, or not families, but teachers, we still recognize that we do have teachers that do need some additional training. And then engagement conditions. And in our district, family engagement is woven into every aspect, into every department. Everyone thinks about how to engage families. And I like to say that, you know, we don't have a family liaison in every building in our district, but each one of our educators, from the secretaries who answer phones at our central office to the custodians who work to keep our buildings maintained and clean and sanitized, to our security officers, to our teachers in the classroom. We're all family liaisons and are all responsible for building those school family partnerships. And with that, I'll take any questions that have been presented. So Beth.
I am not seeing any questions in the chat.
Okay.
There were a couple suggestions, and we will be saving the chat as well as the recording from the session.
And I'm trying to see if I can see the
Please
chat.
enter those into the chat. And in our last minute here, I do want to thank Tracy for sharing her time and knowledge with us today. Please join me in thanking Tracy in the chat. What a wealth of information, and I know a huge undertaking with such a large school district in Ohio.
Okay, you know what, Beth? I can see the chat. Okay.
Great.
And I'm just looking for if there are any questions in there.
Wonderful.
Okay, so again, thank you, Beth, and thank you, everyone. Thank you, the Family Engagement Center. It's a wonderful resource. I don't know if I'm sure all of you are using it because you're here. But again, wishing you all health and success And I just like to say that we can do this. This is hard work, especially during a pandemic, but it's work that's well worth doing. And we are serving a great good in our nation by educating our students and just building capacity. And I wish you all well. Thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you so much, Tracy. We are going to now take a 15-minute break. The next session will begin at 11:30. Remember to keep the conversation going on Twitter using the hashtag #LeadTheLaunch. And you can visit the website I just put in the chat for information about today's events. And you will enter your next session by going and using that link.
So actually, someone asked about where they could see the family care plan survey. Again, the website is www.clevelandmetroschools.org/reopening CMSD, and you will be able to see the family care plan survey there. But it was administered by phone and again online. And thank you.
I will make sure that we put that link into the chat. And again, thank you for joining us.